And here we go. This is it. New cards. So
I'm basically 1/8
let me just
gay.
make sure.
Lurk Craigasm, I'm sure this will be good Kappa Pride.
3 mana, 2/3. Xer'Sai Caller, a lurker with lurk, and when you play it, predicts. So basically, it's an aspiring chronomancer, except you're paying 1 more mana for the lurk keyword. Alright, next up, Feral Prescience. 0 mana, burst speed, predict. Main deckable. A main deckable 0 mana card. Whew, alright. That looks hot. That's interesting. That's interesting. The thing is, there's gonna be ways of using this card, right? Like 0 mana burst speed spell. I don't exactly know how versatile this card is gonna be, but this has some really unique qualities. Like 0 mana burst speed, get some places. And with predict synergy, this could absolutely make a lot more sense. But obviously, it would have to be in a very specific deck. I just noticed my camera is way off. All right, next up, careful preparation. 3 mana burst to play. Place a card from your hand into your deck. Predict, then create a copy of the chosen card in hand. What? Wait. Why? It's literally only for Kahiri. It's like Stalking Shadows. Yeah, it's like it's kind of like a discard 1 Stalking Shadows kind of. You're predicting into the Stalking Shadows, and you have the ability to put one of the cards in hand back into your deck, which can definitely be good in some ways. It's stupidly good. I think like the fact that you have to discard 1 and pay an extra mana feels like it's quite a bit worse than Stalking Shadows, but of course Stalking Shadows is nuts. It has predict synergy, so it's allowed to be a bit worse than Stalking Shadows while still being competitive. We'll have to see. I need to think more about that one because that one's really weird. And the 4th card is Xer'Sai Dunebreaker. 6 mana, 3/6, overwhelm, lurker. So it's sort of in the realm of Skarma the Vrina, or I guess like Wise Fry is sort of like this, like 6 mana, 3 big health overwhelms that grow. And this one I think is gonna be a big payoff. I have no idea how the lurker archetype is gonna look. We don't know how it's going to how much it's gonna get buffed or what the support cards are gonna be. But this is gonna be one of the payoffs for it for sure. Just being able to have overwhelm is really nice. We can compare this to Alpha Wildclaw. It's like a, you know how like the card we saw yesterday, the Xer'Sai Hatchling. You can look at Xer'Sai Hatchling and you're like, well, isn't this just a conditional Precious Pet? Because like Precious Pet does the same thing except without the condition. And you can look at this card as like a conditional Alpha Wildclaw, which is like, well, can't you just do Alpha Wildclaw and do this? Do the same thing without the condition or the deck building cost. So we don't know exactly how much lurk is gonna get triggered. God, so I like seriously, I will say, and this is an important. It's like, listen, it's important to understand without seeing what Xer'Sai and what Pike do. We know both of them are going to work with lurk in some way. Without seeing what they do, it's really hard to say how good the lurk archetype is going to be. Because, you know, I mean, like, you can create new archetypes, right? Like, Tom Soraka is an archetype that never could have existed, but they just released a bunch of cards. The champions work in extremely specific ways that make the entirety of that archetype work. And a lot of those cards in Tom Soraka don't make sense outside of Tom Soraka, right? So, like, depending on how these champions go, it's important to understand that there's always ways that this could be crazy. However, I mean, looking at these support cards and looking at the lurk keyword and like just like the fact that it only triggers once per turn, stuff like that, it's kind of hard to imagine. I'm gonna be honest. Like, we'll have to wait and see what the champions do. Like, I don't know. Like, we'll let's say it triggers every turn. It would have to. It feels hard for this to be good. It does feel triggery, but there has to be some like crazy payoff. Like one of the champions needs to level up off of lurk triggers, and it needs to be like a crazy powerful level up, pretty much. But we'll see. There definitely might be something like that. I mean, the thing is, a lot of these decks kind of don't work until the champion is there to carry them, right? Yeah, like Tom Soraka,
I subbed
even
when
like
it was
Aurelia, Azir, stuff like that.
Now it should have been 3,365, but Slim gave up after 2 days Sag.
Yeah, that was a pretty good meme, huh? All right. Do you think we'll know when Lurk is on the top of your deck now? So the final question here is, when it comes to careful preparation, we can't really evaluate too many of these cards because, I mean, the Lurk cards, we have no idea how good they're going to be until we actually see more of the Lurk cards. And we'll almost certainly see Xer'Sai tomorrow. They're doing the Xer'Sai support cards today and Xer'Sai tomorrow. So the question is, and I just realized that my webcam has been covering the health amount of Dunebreaker the entire time. It's 6 for those of you guys who didn't see it. The question is, you know, how well can we use cards like Careful Preparation and maybe Feral Prescience outside of that? Is it Prescience? Prescience? I've seen Prescience a lot in text. I've never actually heard people say it out loud. So it's not one of the words people say, you know? How does preparation work? Do you create the card you shuffled or the card you predicted? Presumably, you create the card you... God, I actually don't know. I mean, presumably you create the card you predicted would be how I'm reading it, but I guess you can technically read it in the other way. Just pronounce it pre-science. Feral pre-science. Jesus. Honestly, that will be a funny meme. It's oh god, Lamb's Respite. Yeah, my favorite card. If I read it like you would create the card you shuffle. Yeah, I like it's kind of weird. What do you guys think? We're just gonna have to go with like a group think here. Like, honestly, the best way of doing this is just intelligence of the crowds, right? Straight up. I'm literally just gonna pull you guys, because if their wording is decent, it should be intuitive to most of us, right? So what does it copy? The shuffled back card or the predicted card? Like, I'm curious exactly, because it is kind of vague wording, right? The predicted card, right? That's what I would think. But there's definitely some people in chat saying it makes more sense for it to be the shuffled back card. I think it's much more likely to be the predicted card. I agree. So Musili, I agree. Listen, I just had to be sure. I have weird brain things sometimes. That wasn't one of them. All right. So the question is, how the fuck do we use this card? It's I don't get it. What if you skip the predict? That's a really good question. Presumably this predict is unskippable. I'm guessing that the predict off of this card is unskippable. It's kind of like a worse rummage. I mean, it's also kind of like a worse Stalking Shadows, because Stalking Shadows shows you 4 cards and it costs 2 mana and it doesn't discard a card. So for Careful Preparation to make sense, you would need to have a way to get a card from your hand to your deck and like get value from that, like wanting to put something back into your deck, right? Like if you draw a card that just wants to be in your deck, like pick a card. Yeah, I think that's kind of like the only value here, right? Unless I'm missing something. Like what kind of combo can you use this for? I love Careful Prep. What are you seeing with this, Kuvira? You can use it with Kahiri. Yeah, Kahiri is an example of something you want in your deck, sure. And it's very possible, you know, some people were speculating Echo might be kind of like Kahiri in some way. I think Precipic said Echo might literally just be like Kahiri, except with, you know, like a different incentive, but you want to predict a lot and you want to see Echo a lot or something like that. That could be interesting. Works with Fading Memories. Fading Memories. Works super good with P and Z. It can copy spells. Yeah, this can copy spells, and Stalking Shadows can't. So there's definitely that. Anti-TLC. Yeah, anti-TLC. That is a pretty funny application of this card.
Xer'Sai into her deck to get the payoff again.
Yeah, shuffle Xer'Sai into your deck. There's always that, but at that point, there's like, I mean, it's kind of awkward being able to like refind them. I think there might be something specific about how Xer'Sai or lurkers in general work that will actually make shuffling them back into your deck more payoff more reliably. It can copy champions, presumably. Yeah, it can copy champions too. That's interesting. And Stalking Shadows can't. So there are a lot of things this card can do, which is sweet. I will say it's important to note Stalking Shadows is literally one of the most unfair cards in the game in general. It's a careful preparation being a worse version of Stalking Shadows doesn't make it bad by any means. And it can do a lot of things Stalking Shadows can't. You shuffle back stuff like Gotcha and Suit Up. Yeah, potentially. Yeah. And the Xer'Sai crystals as well. More Xer'Sai crystals. Yeah, you draw the first Xer'Sai crystal and you shuffle it back, and then you try to get 2 more. That seems not great. But yeah, no, there's definitely ways of being able to use this. All right. So I think for the most part, not too much else to talk about in terms of today's reveals. Careful preparation is the one that there's definitely the most to think about. And I'll have to spend probably the rest of today just like thinking about different ways to use careful preparations. Because there are actually a lot of applications of this card, right? Like this, it is a really scarily scalable card, right? There are really cool and unique applications for this. But overall, yeah, this is my initial impressions on today's reveals. Basically, Xer'Sai Caller and Xer'Sai Dunebreaker, we have no goddamn clue how good Lurker's gonna be. I mean, it's looking dicey, but it's completely reliant on Xer'Sai and Pike, and that's kind of the same thing we were saying yesterday. Feral Prescience looks pretty good. I mean, it looks like it'll pretty much be for the Lurker package. I don't exactly know where else it might fit, but I mean, 0 mana burst speed card is something that it feels like if there's like a lot of predict synergy in some way, there's maybe like more ways of being able to use it. It's at the very least unique. I don't know if it'll be hitting decks, but it's the kind of thing that represents a unique option in the deck builder. Careful preparation being the one that is definitely most interesting in terms of what we can at least theorycraft with before seeing more cards. All right, what do you guys think? Are there other big ways of using careful preparation that we missed out on?